and you came just to make sure that they arrest President Jonathan. But why was he not arrested in Nigeria? Why is it that America has to do it?
Because he has immunity, and the American government went to arrest Noriega from Nicaragua, so it's easier for them now he's here. So let them just arrest him here. And you can't even arrest a governor in Nigeria. They have immunity, but in America he has no immunity. And I pray they will arrest him.
And you want him jailed here or take him back to Nigeria to be tried?
Well, I would want him to be jailed anywhere. First of all, to be tried. I would want him to be tried, and if he's found not guilty, he should be acquitted and discharged. But if he's found guilty, I'd want him to spend the prison time in Kirikiri.
You see, that was in 2014 when APC leaders, APC politicians are then as an opposition against PDP then in 2014. They were doing everything possible to take over power from Jonathan, to dislodge Jonathan in 2015. They did everything possible. They went to America then to report Jonathan that Jonathan should be arrested in America whenever he comes to America then, because in Nigeria he was not because he has immunity, they're not going to arrest him. It's not possible. So they went to report, to complain to one of the senators, then to the president. Donald Trump, not Donald Trump, Obama were in support of APC government then. Obama used everything, he uses everything he has then to support APC and dislodge Jonathan then. So that was the propaganda, that was the rumors, the lies APC government told against Jonathan to make sure. Now, today the table has turned. It's now boomerang that APC government now has failed. It now becomes a problem that they don't want anybody to talk about it. So these are the issues. You see, they said because you don't mess up, you don't mess around, you don't mess up in the market because of the next market day. Otherwise, you are not able to go there and trade. So now APC did all of this at that time. Today, the table has turned. Karma has come for Tinubu and APC government. So they also we need to call them out. The world needs to see what is going on, and they need to face this problem. They need to solve the problem. If we cannot solve this problem, then since the Nigeria government is complicit in solving this problem, the foreigners, Donald Trump, has to come to solve this problem for us so that we can have peace in this country. Since APC government, they brought insecurity, these terrorists, to Nigeria. So we are not going to keep quiet again. So they will be forced to say the truth this time around. So that was in 2014. So I want you to take your time, listen to this video to the end so that you know what is going on. See how I'm a sample. Put it so that you understand, because all this, everything are on social media. When you go to the US then to report Jonathan that this is what is going on, everything is being documented. Now today, that time you said it was not good enough. We had a Christians and Muslim tickets that time, they were not good enough. Tinubu and his member, they used everything they had to fight Jonathan till Jonathan leaves office. Till Jonathan left office. Today, Tinubu is now the president. Do you think the work of a president is just to answer the name president? It comes with a lot of responsibility. That name president, it comes with a lot of responsibility. This is part of the responsibility that you think Jonathan was not able to do. Then, now it is your turn to do it. We could see now that you are complicit. You can't even do anything. You can't do quarter of what Jonathan has done. Then, so you have to solve the problem. Otherwise, Donald Trump has to come solve the problem for, because it does not affect you. It affects we, the common masses on the street, on the street, who is not in any way connected to the politicians. Do you understand? So we are the one. If anybody is telling us that America is coming to take over our assets, because we have a precious asset that the Donald Trump is eyeing, Donald Trump is coming to take over, what are we benefiting from this precious asset? The money, the resources, everything that we have, that Donald Trump is coming to take, what are we benefiting? Is it not the same politicians that owns everything? As a citizen, what are you benefiting? No. So if Donald Trump is coming to take the asset away from the politicians, so every one of us can remain, let it be, so be it. The problem we have is we want to sleep, we want to sleep and wake up in a safe environment. You don't have to speak in tongues to drive around the road, or some of the roads in Nigeria. You don't have to speak in tongues. You speak in tongues to drive across all the roads. You speak in tongues when you sleep to wake up in the next day. Why? Because the country has failed. The country collapsed. Insecurity. Do you understand? So all these are the problems. So since Tinubu cannot solve the problem, let Donald Trump come help us solve the problem. If this is a way for Tinubu not to contest election in 2027, so be it. Tinubu's life is not important than the lives of Nigerians that are being killed day by day. Tinubu is a citizen of this country. We also the citizens of this country. Nobody have monopoly. Tinubu does not have any right. He is a privilege and opportunity to be a president of this country. That does not mean other lives are not important. They are all important. So he needs to protect everybody. This is exactly what he did in 2027, in 2014-15, that dislodged Jonathan from office. So he has to do is solve the problem. Why are they paying now? Talking about this problem. They went to the US. All these things are on record, documented. When you went there at that time to report Jonathan, everything now, karma has come for you. You need to carry your cross. So if you are not able, fine. 2027, if Donald Trump is able to help us to make sure Tinubu does not even come on any ballot boxes in 27, fine. Let this be opportunity for Nigeria to rejoice. We say Tinubu does not come. We are not saying he's not going to win. We don't even want him to come on any ballot boxes at all to contest election. That's all we wanted. So please take your time, watch the video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Whatever is happening right now is not new. In 2014, don't forget, Dr. Abati, you have a situation where APC leaders took themselves from Nigeria, including late General Muhammadu Buhari, who was the then presumption candidate of the APC, and went to meet John Kerry, former Secretary of State, to the US government, and laid down all of this. And you could see that the US took all the things that they said to heart. And since then, the US has been documenting everything that's been happening. And close to the 2015 election, John Kerry came to the country, and the US tried to play an influence. Now, if we are reversing the situation, APC is now in government after having chased PDP out, and they are facing the same thing. So our politicians should know that it's not about political party or political actors, it's about the interests of the country.
Ayo and I have two very special guests who have great experience in these matters. Right here in our studios, we have Captain Bish Johnson, who is a retired U.S. Army personnel, defense and political affairs analyst as well. He's written an article in the wake of this statement. And we also have joining us via Zoom from the United Kingdom, Professor Ademola Abbas, who is a global affairs analyst.
I don't think that this current administration should take ownership of what happened in Buhari and Jonathan's administration, because everything that is happening in Nigeria is public knowledge. We know, the world knows that Nigeria has insecurity problem, just like we know that America has gun problem. So for Mr. President to talk about 2023 to date, that is the right way to go. Don't take ownership of Buhari's administration. Don't take ownership of Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Just engage Mr. Trump, because this is a very highly unpredictable administration. We've seen what is going on in the Caribbean Sea, off the coast of Venezuela. And I know that politicians and scholars will be talking about international laws. Donald Trump does not follow international laws. If he did, he wouldn't be in the Caribbean Sea. If he did, he wouldn't be deploying USS Alford down to the Caribbean Sea. The Israelis, as you see, did not listen to international laws. So this is not a time to talk about international law and speak long grammar. This is a time to engage and get practical results, because this is a very unpredictable administration. If they decide to come into Nigeria, I don't see the capability that we possess in this country to stop them. It's a matter of seconds. They've taken over our airspace. And this is something we must engage them and prevent it from happening. And we should be able to present our case in a very genuine and concise manner. Accept that we have a problem. There's a problem in Nigeria. There's a problem. And why I say that there's an element of local and international geopolitics in it is this. Why is it now, after the UN General Assembly speech by the Vice President? You see, before now, I understood that the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy is Africa. Africa is the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy. I don't know at what point we had deviated from that foreign policy and now made Palestine the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy. This is a very sensitive and explosive discussion, which we have no business engaging in, because we already have our own problems that we are dealing with, and we ought to focus on those problems that are of direct interest to Nigeria and stop engaging in things that we have no business engaging in. If you look at the issue of Russia and Ukraine, largely, African leaders had maintained what I call strategic neutrality, and by remaining silent in that war. And that is what we need to adopt. We need to maintain strategic neutrality in issues about Palestine, so that we don't go the way of South Africa. You see what is happening in South Africa? What is happening between the US and South Africa is as a result of direct consequence of South Africa's action against Israel, taking their leaders to International Criminal Court and all that stuff. And this is what Donald Trump and his evangelical Christians in America are reading. That look, you have a country, Nigeria, that has been led for about a decade now by Muslim leaders, because you can't take away the fact that Buhari was a Muslim and he was in office for 8 years, and now you have Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is also a Muslim, who's been in office for 2 years, and for a decade they have not been able to rein in Boko Haram, which is, by the way, an Islamic terrorist organization that, imagine the scene, with a declaration that it wants to establish an Islamic state within the sovereign state of Nigeria, where they are going to practice Sharia law. All these things are public notice that the Americans are aware of. And so that is why we must tread with caution. We must tread with honesty and engage the Americans and lay out the steps that had been taken by this administration within 2 years to deal with the problems, insecurity problems that we have. And then lay out the areas of challenges that the administration is facing and ask America, look, this is our challenge. How can you help in these areas of challenges that we have?
Thank you very much, Captain Bish Johnson. Let me come to Professor Ademola Abbas. I do not know whether you agree with his submissions. I mean, he said quite a number of things. He said that we're dealing with a U.S. that really doesn't regard very much international law, and that it should first and ask questions later. We know that usually within international relations, there are rules, some of them spoken, some of them unspoken, that guides relations between countries. I've written a statement, or will I say an article written by Nigeria's former Chief of Army Staff Tukur Buratai. He also says this is a moment charged with danger of catastrophic miscalculation, yet it holds the potential for a more resilient and mutually advantageous alliance. Do you see room here for Nigeria to be able to improve its relations with the United States in a way that mutually benefits both countries? Or do you think that we've since gone way beyond that, given the statement given by President Donald Trump?
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Good morning again, and good morning, Ayo. It's nice seeing both of you again. First to your question, whether I agree with the gentleman who just spoke. Well, he said many things. Some I don't agree with, obviously. He made a reference to the fact that this is not the time to talk about international law and all this stuff. But I think if I take that on, not merely because I'm a person of international law, but because this is one of the ways we tend to misfire sometimes and misdirect our attention. As an example, Donald Trump used the word genocide. Genocide is not a domestic law term. Genocide is an international law term. And Donald Trump has a specific reason for invoking genocide in this particular situation. Let's forget whether he invoked it in the Gaza one or other places that he should have, or the US should have, but at least he's invoking it in. That is an international law playing at them. He knows by the virtue of 1940 Genocide Convention, the moment you invoke the existence of genocide in any place, albeit whether it is right or wrong, there is an obligation in the international community to take an action. So, and that is the point. Those who want to play this game, they know how to use international to their advantage. We should not shy away from it. We should confront them with that. So we should come and say, for instance, well, if you are invoking genocide, that there's genocide, present genocide in Nigeria, as a matter of international law, the question is, it does not lie on you as a country to unilaterally then decide what you do. Because Genocide Convention lays out the procedures to be followed if there is genocide in place. That's just to show that we cannot shy away from international law at all. Because they are very smart in doing that. Now, having said that, on the question of whether there is an opportunity here between Nigeria and US to improve their relationships, that presupposes there's a breakdown of relations between the two countries. Obviously, yes. If there was no breakdown, I don't think we would have got to this particular point in our relationship with the United States, as an example. But then we need to take a step back before we get lost in the whole narrative, all this here and there, whatever is flying around. How did we get here, Mark? It's a critical question. How did we get here? I've heard so many things, people saying there was genocide, there's no genocide. That is not the issue here. The issue is, as a country, we are dealing with a mammoth problem of insecurity in our country, in which perception plays a critical role. And I'll be the first to say, like everybody else, killings in Nigeria today have become so brutally normalized. In fact, it has become completely banalized. So we've got the banality of evil on a daily basis in our life. About 3 years ago, some people went to a church in Owo, in Ondo State, and killed so many Christians in a church. In Plateau State today, in Benue State today, part of Nasarawa and so on, a lot of Christians have been killed. But also, a lot of Muslims have been killed too. Bullets do not distinguish between, Muslims and Christians. That is one argument. So today, we don't even need the America to tell us, to designate us as a country of particular concern, CPC, whatever you call it. We should know we are unto ourselves, are becoming a country of particular concern, or even unto ourselves. We don't need third party to tell us that. Now, how did we get here? It's a very important question. This is not the first time Nigeria has been designated by CPC. Trump 1.0 did it, don't forget. Biden came in 2021, took us from that list. By the way, in that list, you have Saudi Arabia, you have North Korea, you have China, and some other countries in the world that are still on that list. Biden came and took us from that list. Now, in the same year, 2021, there was an bipartisan report on the issue of the International Religious Freedom Act, IIF, which there were issues about. Now, the question is, what did we do about that report in 2021? Apart from that, when certain figures began to emerge, especially with Trump to control the second term of Trump, you have a lot of hawkish people in that government, no question about whether you are Exet or you are Marco Rubio or you are Ted Cruz. They have their own sympathies towards a particular region, no doubt about that. Then the question is, what did we do when they began to send people to Nigeria to come and investigate what is going on in the country? And they will go to specific areas, Benue State, Plateau State, and places that would justify whatever report they want to do. What did our government do as a people to counter that? It seems to me we've taken the chill pill for too long on this matter. Now, don't forget, when Barack Obama was there was this issue of his with this LGBT whatsoever. Barack Obama, because of Nigeria's response to that issue, just like Uganda, Barack Obama chose not to sell weapons to Nigeria. He didn't say, not only to stop from not selling arms to Nigeria, he actually prevented other countries from selling arms to Nigeria. It was the same Donald Trump that came here and reversed that and began to sell arms to Nigeria. So Donald Trump is doing something for Nigeria. Naturally, he wants something back from it. Now, what did he get back? If you are Donald Trump, let's be honest, you'll be asking for something in return. There is no free dinner, no free lunch anyway, not even a free time, diplomatically speaking. Donald Trump seems he's doing something for Nigeria, but he's asking himself, what am I getting back? Number one, Palestinian issue, Gaza. Nigeria went to the General Assembly. And I'm not saying as a country we should be cowed or we shouldn't be able to speak our mind, but there's a way you do it diplomatically, for goodness sake. That does not make you look as if You are jettisoning one side completely, and you are into that's what it's all about. So when the vice president, correctly in my view, addressed the General Assembly, maybe we should have found a way of parsing our language to make things more balanced. Donald Trump heard that. Then do not forget, on the issue of Venezuelan criminals, Nigeria, Donald Trump made it very clear then, if you remember, that Nigeria must take these criminals, otherwise Nigeria will pay for it. Look, we don't have to buckle because of that. We don't have to say, well, because you said that, Mr. President, we are going to jump into this. No. But I say, wait, diplomacy plays a role in that. We didn't do that. That's the second thing, as an example, that probably Donald Trump will be looking for something for that he didn't get. Then, fast forward. This happened. What has been our response so far? What has been the response of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? We don't even have any ambassador at the moment that will interfere between Nigeria and the US. So things degenerated to this level because I think as a people, if we are honest with each other, I think we become a bit complacent in the way we've approached some of these issues, in the way we've tackled the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Any society, whether you're killing Christians or Muslim or traditional worshippers, that you are killing your people have been killed. On the scale Nigerians have been killed today, you don't need any talk to tell you your country has become a CPC. Now, that does not mean that the government has become tolerant to that. I disagree with that. I don't think our government has become tolerant of, killings at all, whether you are killing Muslims or Christians or whatever. I don't believe in that narrative. But the question is not how much I believe. It is what the government is going to counter that narrative as and when they arise, not when things get to this boiling point. Having said that, Mark, I think we've got to a crunch place now, in which as a people we must make a choice. How do we engage with the Americans on this? And make no mistake. All those who are saying the US cannot attack us, they haven't got any sense of history. I'm not saying the US will attack us. There's a difference between can they attack us or will they attack us? There are two different questions. Don't let them get to them. But what is important is how do we diplomatically resolve this logjam? For me, that is the critical point. And I think Nigeria has a golden opportunity here to step forward and say, look, mistakes have been made, no doubt. We've learned some lessons. We need your partnership, like any major Western partner. We need your partnership to be able to defeat insecurity in our land, whether it is against Christians or Muslims or whatever it is. So far, innocent people have been killed on a daily basis. We need help and we need to move decisively. For me, I think that is where the opportunity lies. The ability of Nigerian government to say, look, we're not going to engage in, combo diplomacy. We're not going to engage in megaphone diplomacy. We're going to do that. What we're going to do is to have a constructive way of engaging with our international partners, including the United States, to be able to say, look, it's high time we began to take some serious actions to be able to lay to rest the issue of insecurity in our country. So I do think there's an opportunity here for Nigeria and the United States to be able to improve their relationship.
Oh, well, both our guests, I can see that you both see opportunities. But I'm wondering, this statement, we saw one statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs before we saw that of the president. I'm just wondering whether you think that the presidency is reading this correctly. And Nigeria seems to be interpreting this as a question of tolerance. It will seem between Christians and Muslims. But when you look at the statement, it's about jihadists, Islamic terrorists. Do you think that Nigeria is being careful or is a misinterpretation of what the U.S. is saying?
Well, I don't think it's a misinterpretation of what the US is saying. I mean, it's normal that when you're looking at something, as an example, if you are myopic, if you have, short-sightedness, and I am long-sighted, and we are looking at the same object, if I don't have my glasses on, I will look at these things differently from the way you are looking at. We are looking at the same thing, but we are giving different report. And it doesn't mean that one is being deliberate in evading what you are, or in reinterpreting what you are saying, or what he is saying from what you are saying. But what is important, as far as I'm concerned, it's not just a question of whether Nigeria is reading it correctly or wrongly. It's what Nigeria is prepared to do with the core issue here. Whether it is a classification of genocide or not, the only thing the US is talking about is that Christian lives have been, tampered with in Nigeria, been decimated in Nigeria. You can extend that to say there is no more sanctity of life in Nigeria, whether it's Christian life, Muslim life, pagan's life, whatever lives are no longer sacrosanct in our country. And for me, that should be the focus that we should be concerned ourselves in. We won't engage, as an example, in trading wars with them. For instance, when I read what President Trump said about Nigeria being a disgraced country, some people want to get one with that. That why is it calling our country disgraced? Is it simply because we've not been able to tackle insecurity? Then if that classification is because of that, there are so many disgraced countries in the world, including the US, that after almost 200 years has not been able to tackle the issue of gun violence in that country. But when you go on that level with Donald Trump, you're making a mistake. Donald Trump is a president who uses what we deem fit. Even his own colleagues in government, he will call them Sleepy Joe, Crooked Hillary, and this and that. The mayor of London here, he used very uncomplimentary terms on him and so on and so forth. So you don't focus on that. That is Trump's personality. That is Trump's character. Don't waste your time on that. Focus on the issue. What is the issue? For me, the salient question is, why are Americans getting this, at the point in time, getting so wound up on what is going on? They've been there for a long time, but you have to be fair. To whom much is given, sometimes a lot more is expected. The US has been a partner of Nigeria. They've trained our military. They've done so many things. They've allowed weapons to be sold to us. So they have a right to ask. For me, if Trump has said, look, I'm not happy with Nigeria because of the way Nigeria is allowing its people to be killed, that would be more acceptable than to focus only on Christians. Because at the end of the day, as a so-called leader of the freedom world, Life should matter to you, whether they are Muslims or they are Christians, whether they are, no matter what they are. At the end of the day, life should matter to you, not just focusing on Christians alone. So I think we should take a step back and ask ourselves a sincere question. That from here, how do we go forward?
Well, you know, some people would say that wasn't a mistake. That focus on Christians wasn't a mistake. And I think that's where a lot of Nigerians have expressed concern.
Sure.
Because we're not just ethnically diverse people, we're also religiously diverse. And we know that for many years, we've delicately managed this balance between Christians and Muslims. And those who have said, look, look, in 2023, it was a major issue. The fact that we had a Muslim ticket from the All Progressives Congress. And it was, something that the opposing parties tried to, use to demarcate, because we know that traditionally, whenever it is we have a Christian from the south, usually it will be a Christian from the south, you will have a Muslim from the north, or vice versa. But in this instance, the person who was coming from the south was a Muslim, which made it very, very so. We know that this is potentially something that has the power to be combustible in our country. And so some people have said, is it that the United States, with all of its knowledge of Nigeria, is it that they're not aware of this? Or has this been intentional to create some effect in Nigeria, since, some predictions have not come true before now? What was your own reading of that?
Well, like I stated earlier, you have to make a distinction between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0. 1.0, he had experienced people in foreign affairs and the military. Now he has people who are telling him the things that he wants to hear, not the things that he needs to hear. Now, that's the reason why the statement he made alluded to the fact that Muslims, Islamic terrorist organizations are killing Christians, because he wants to establish the premise of genocide. Because if Muslims are killing their fellow Muslims, it's not genocide. If Christians are killing their fellow Christians, it's not genocide. But when you say that Muslims are killing Christians, you are trying to lay a foundation. It is the same foundation that was laid in the issue of South Africa, where they said that ANC-led government, which is predominantly black, were taking lands away from minority white farmers, and in some cases killing them. And we saw what that led: expulsion of South African ambassador from Washington, and imposition of tariffs on some major export products of South Africa. So this is the direction that Donald Trump and his supporters are going. Now, it's not a coincidence that the senator who is making this argument in Senate is Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is an evangelical Christian who is from Texas. Texas has one of the largest population of Nigerians, particularly in the Houston area, where you have Sugar Land. And these Nigerians are very well read, they are rich, they are doing fantastically well in America. And some of them, a lot of them are conservatives that contribute to Ted Cruz's campaign, and they are his friends. He hears from them. So we will be making a mistake if we think that they don't know exactly what is happening in Nigeria. They know exactly what is happening in Nigeria. But for America to be able to make a case that they have to come in to deal with the problem, they have to lay that foundation of genocide. Now, like the Prof rightly said, this is not the time for us to begin to debate or argue with Donald Trump and his administration. As I said earlier, it's an opportunity for us to reset the relationship button between Nigeria and the US, which, by the way, has been going sour for some time now, starting from the administration of Barack Obama. We've seen US presidents visiting Africa, and they don't visit Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, and supposedly the giant of Africa. There's a reason for that. And so this is an opportunity for us to reset that button. And this current administration has that solemn opportunity to reset that button, because he can make the case, as he is making, that, look, I have only been in office for 2 years. And this is what I have achieved within the 2 years that I have been in office. And these are the challenges that we have. We are willing and ready to work with you to deal with those challenges as against going to take on Donald Trump and his administration. If we go that direction, the outcome will be disastrous. We don't want that. So we need to be very, very diplomatic and strategic. And I have to say this. Anytime we find ourselves on a global stage, we should be measured in how we present certain things. The Palestine issue is a very sensitive matter that ought to have been balanced or even left out completely. I didn't see any benefit in making that statement. I didn't see any benefit accruing to Nigeria in making that statement. I also do not see any harm that would have caused Nigeria had we stayed off that comment, like most countries did, and maintain strategic silence or strategic neutrality on the issue of Palestine and Israel.
Yeah, but the United Nations, a lot of people will argue, was formed for the reasons that we're seeing what is happening in, to prevent that sort of situation, that no country should have to face that, or no group of people on earth should have to face what we've seen in Palestine.
I completely agree with you, but you also need to agree with me that the United Nations, as far as I am concerned, and not just me, and so many other people, is more or less like a stage where people go to talk. It's more of talk and less of action. Because United Nations was there when Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is a sovereign nation. We've seen what is happening in Ukraine. The United Nations has not been able to stop the humanitarian disaster and catastrophe that is taking place in Ukraine. We've seen what is going on in Sudan. There are people dying in Sudan today as we speak. It's just that the media is not focusing attention in Sudan. The United Nations has not been able to solve that problem. You saw what happened in Gaza. The United Nations was almost powerless, in fact, powerless in stopping what the human catastrophe that took place in Gaza. So, as much as we recognize the existence of the United Nations, we should also be practical and strategic in the way we present our case, knowing that, look, some of all these superpowers wielding veto powers, and considering the structure of the United Nations, that, look, because United Nations is one of the most undemocratic institutions in the world. It's an institution that advocates for democracy, but does not have internal democracy within the United Nations. Because a situation where one nation, one country, we just override the decision of 120-something nations is not democratic. And so we have to take cognizance of all of those things. When we present our case, we must be more measured and more balanced in how we present our case. And if we are going to present any case at all, that case must have a direct interest for the benefit of Nigeria and Nigerians. If it doesn't have that direct interest, maybe we shouldn't even go there if it's such a sensitive and toxic matter.
Okay. I know Ayo has questions for you, gentlemen. Ayo, over to you.
Thank you, Marco. I would want to ask some kind of different questions, but let me take it with you first, Prof. To a large extent, two issues that I'd like you to speak to very quickly. To a large extent, everyone who has been speaking about this has spoken about the fact that the federal government has a responsibility, and no doubt, because it is one state to another state. But then there are those who would point to two origins, because you, Prof, were the one asking, how did we get here? One, it's a good number of Nigerians that have been making different calls. From time to time, politicians will say, that the United States of America should come and intervene in this. The United States of America or any other country at that should come in and save the day, so to speak. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the responsibility of state governments. We say that the responsibility of government shall be the protection of lives and property. And most of the time when these things happen, we speak only to federal government. We don't, it would seem like we are just giving the governors a slap on the wrist. So when you ask the questions, how did we get here? How do these two issues also play? Or don't you think they have any role to play at all?
Again, look, you are absolutely right in pointing out those two things. But let me start with the first one, with Nigerians of various shades and classes calling on the Americans to come and do something in Nigeria, protect Nigerians, and so on and so forth. Nigeria is one of the most relaxed countries, actually, when it comes to the question of patriotism. You don't see other countries. I worked for African Union for some time in Ethiopia, and I can never imagine for the life of me an Ethiopian standing up, especially during the reign of Mengistu, and you're calling out foreign countries to come and protect your country, or come and protect your people. But Nigeria is a very and that is why when people talk about how undemocratic Nigeria is, I back a bit, because I think we mix a lot of things in the process. So Nigeria is a place where a lot of people have freedom to talk, to say whatever they want to say, whether we have an election. Look, during the election 2023, I was in your studios a lot. A lot of Nigerians were calling, no, come and stop this government from taking over, come and stop Ashwaji from taking over, come and stop it up. You are just making this kind of calls. And the Nigerian government just sort of takes everything under its chin. Let me be honest with you. We need to balance the freedom of expression with also your responsibility, the civic duties of Nigerians as a people. We need to balance it. I'll just sort of remember what I think was Obochi said in Uganda very jokingly at a point in time. He said, look, he said, in this country, we have no problem with your freedom of expression. It is freedom after it that we are concerned with. He was the president. He was saying that people are free to say whatever they want to say. But look, we hurt our countries by our own actions. We deprecate our countries so much. And I keep on pointing to some examples. What happened in the US in January 2020, the invasion of the Capitol, which is supposed to be the seat of, the iconic seat of democracy in the world. Before our very eyes, the Americans turned the narrative into, they are tourists. That came from Donald Trump himself. That they were tourists who visited the Capitol. And they were people who were insurrectionists at the end of the day. Fast forward, last year, the election that brought in Donald Trump, we saw Elon Musk freely distributing money in some states in America. I'm not talking about distributing money, cash for people to go and vote. You never saw at that point in time the American media saying it was vote buying, it was this. So we are quick to deprecate ourselves as a people. And that is, just as you said, you have a lot of Nigerians calling on Americans. Government must find a way of balancing this kind of thing and say, look, we have a responsibility to ourselves as a people. Whenever anything happens, we don't have to keep on jumping and calling, foreigners come and intervene. But then the question you must ask yourself as a government before you do that is, are you doing enough to give people the confidence for them to rely on your effort and not to invite international actors or third-party or third-state actors? That's a very important question that you need to ask. But the question is the second one. Look, anytime we talk about federalism in Nigeria, I don't know what to say, because what we have in Nigeria today is not really a federal system. State governments today are just like Boy Scouts as far as I'm concerned. They're just like appendages of the federal government. It's only in Nigeria that I see federal government that is dictating to state governments what they should do. State governments need to evolve on their own, and people need to hold them very accountable. We need to hold our governors accountable.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of improvement, a lot of increase in terms of what the amount of money that goes to state government. Where do this money go? You have to see state governors buying private jets. I mean, you're talking about governors buying private jets and begin to wonder, are they executive directors of companies? No, they are executive directors of state.
I think quite a significant statement have been made, Prof. My sincere apologies, because I know that we're running out of time, and that is what you have said, that we need to hold the governors a lot more accountable than we do. One question for you, Captain Bish Johnson, and then my colleague can take over. You said earlier that we shouldn't just take this, whatever President Trump is saying, as just one of those things. That you have made references to certain things that, look, this is not just a matter of religious intolerance or that there could be more to it. How about this angle some other people are talking about? That the U.S. was probably waiting for an opportunity to retaliate in a way concerning the import ban that the federal government proposed much earlier in this year. The U.S. president, the United States, through one of his representatives, the trade representative, has spoken and said, look, this import ban, this your Nigeria First initiative, is already telling on businesses in America, and there are going to be consequences. Is that also, in a way, for you, a surreptitious way of getting back at Nigeria with this particular intervention, or you think that doesn't count, Captain?
It does. Obviously, it does. Yes. Obviously, it does. We have to look at a range of issues, right? As I stated earlier, there's local politics to it, and there's geopolitics to it as well. And so, it's not just one issue. The issue of religion, there is no question of religious intolerance in Nigeria. Every Nigerian has a right to worship whoever or whatever they want to worship. That is not the problem of Nigeria. But we have to make that case that we don't have religious intolerance in this country. The truth of the matter is that because of decades of insecurity, a lot of Nigerians have lost hope and trust in their government ability to protect them. That is why, as you said earlier, you hear Nigerians calling on foreign nations to come and protect them. You saw what happened during the other protests in Kano, where young people were carrying flags of foreign nations and calling on those countries to come and intervene. That is because there is a trust gap and lack of confidence that the public has in their government. So, direct to the question that you asked, all of these factors are playing out. You look at the issue of the comment that was made by the Vice President at the United Nations. You look at what people are telling Trump and Ted Cruz in Texas about how Nigeria has a Muslim president and vice president, which is a deviation from tradition. And you look at the embargo that you're talking about. Donald Trump is a transactional president. Like the Prof pointed out earlier, he does not engage in anything that does not bring benefits to America. And so he is looking at all this range of issues and making the determination. Unfortunately, because of the failure of the several administrations in this country to rein in insecurity, and I lay the blame mostly on President Muhammad Buhari, because I was one of those who supported him on the basis that as a former military leader, he could rein in insecurity in Nigeria. And as a matter of fact, in his maiden address to the nation the day he assumed office, he categorically stated that we cannot say that we have defeated Boko Haram when you have some Chibogias that are still being held hostage. It's unfortunate that the former president completed his 8 years, passed away, and we still have some hostages being held captive by Boko Haram. And so all of these things are the things that we need to consider. Let's not assume that America doesn't know what is happening in Nigeria. They know exactly what is happening in Nigeria. They're hearing from Nigerians. But the president started off correctly, like I said. And I also read the statement that was issued by the former Chief of Army Staff, Borotai. This is a very dangerous time in international politics. Most of the international laws that used to take hold in foreign relations are no longer holding, because powerful nations are going against those laws. And so we need to take cognizance of that. And before we take, as we take the steps that we are taking, we should make argument based. That's why I said, we don't have to look at international law when we make our case. If we go there and start debating international law with Donald Trump, it's going to backfire. We need to go there and tell Donald Trump, look, the only reason why Donald Trump invoked genocide is because he wants to lay a premise for him to be able to come into Nigeria. It's the same card he played with South Africa, and that's the card that he's playing in Nigeria here. And that is why he's saying Islamic terrorist organizations are killing Christians. He had to make sure that he put that Islamic before the terrorists to establish that you have Muslims that are killing Christians, to get a justification for whatever action that the Americans want to take.
Captain, as we wrap up now, I just want to, in 30 seconds if you can, what do you want to see Nigeria doing?
Well, what I want to see Nigeria doing is what Mr. President has already done. I want Mr. President not to take ownership of what happened in Buhari and Jonathan's administration in terms of security, because those two administrations failed Nigerians. Okay. Had they done what they were supposed to do, this president wouldn't have inherited that insecurity situation from those previous administrations. Right. He needs to make that case very strongly, that the situation he's facing now was a situation that he inherited from the previous administrations.
All right, Prof, quickly in 30 seconds, what do you think Nigeria ought to be doing right now?
Well, Mark, first we need to engage more diplomatically with the Americans. Why don't we have an ambassador at this point? Why don't we have ambassadors globally that can interface with those countries and our country, number one. Then number two, we need to be more proactive when such issues as we are dealing with now begin to emerge.
To come into our country, guns blazing. You understand? Now, you spoke of Islamist terrorists. Why not tell us the truth? You know who they are. Commodore Umi told us. He flirted with it. He just couldn't release the names. But that is understandable. He's our own intelligence officer, trained by you as well. US was involved in his training. You guys have better files, access to better information that Olawumi ever had. Why not tell us who they are? Why not tell the world? So please, don't tell us about coming guns blazing. You know who the terrorists are. Tell us. The ones in the power structure of Nigeria. Tell us. Expose them. And then you spoke of atrocities. The atrocities that have been taking place in Nigeria didn't start today. Started since around 2003. Sometimes with American connivance and silence. We're aware, but we've been rendered powerless because America has been largely complicit in what has happened to us. You can help us. Yes, you can. America can be a true friend to progressive forces in Nigeria, but not by coming in with your guns blazing. We don't need you coming into our country guns blazing. Just stand by the truth and insist on the right things being done. Now you have discovered the cherished Christians in Nigeria. Where were these cherished Christians in 2014, 2015? When the Obama regime, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, was the American government. When the Abacha and when the Obama regime was busy helping to install the APC government, which brought in the reign of Islamists and the attendant security challenges that we are facing today, that have been killing these same cherished Christians in droves for over a decade. What has America been doing about it? And what did America ever say? So I'm happy that all of a sudden America remembers that there are cherished Christians in Nigeria, but they are also cherished Muslims. They are cherished Shia Christians, Shia Muslims who have been slaughtered in hundreds without America saying a word for years. So yeah, I agree with you in total. The Nigerian government had better move fast, because if it doesn't move fast, this country will be gone, whether America comes in gun blazing or not. And that is as far as it concerns the Americans. My enemy's enemy is not my friend, but the Americans are not our enemies, but they're also not our friends. Americans are Americans. Donald Trump is beholden to the American people, and it is his interest that Americans are bettered. So at any point in time, understand that he is elected to serve Americans. And when he's speaking promoting American interests. There are cherished Christians who are today being slaughtered in America, treated like animals in American detention centers, clamped in cages, and they are Christians. Latin Americans don't come more Christian than that. They're Catholics, largely Catholics. They don't have your identity before they clamp you in their detention camps. So please, I do not require Mr. Donald Trump to tell me how nasty my country has become. It is nasty. Does it need help? Yes, we need help. Do we need to find ourselves? Yes, we do. Has Donald Trump lied in any way? No. He largely told the truth. My own position is that yes, help us, but we must help ourselves. It is up to us to help ourselves. Now, why I said I'll lay down the American case first is because it dovetails into what I had already said myself this week. No saints, no sinners, just Nigerians. I have repeatedly sang a particular song each time that this has come to mind, and that is the one where I have said, Boala Lowombe, that is, we are all guilty. Nigeria did not get to this point by accident. It is here by design. But we have acted horribly because we have allowed it, and we are equally complicit in what has overtaken us. My wife runs a business where she sells food. On a Sunday, pretty much like this one, she unexpectedly, at least her staff were not expecting her, so she went to the store. And on getting there, for some reason, inexplicable, because even on normal weekdays, she probably wouldn't have visited, but she went to the kitchen. And she found the staff. They had fried 3 crates of eggs. That's 96. I don't speak about my businesses, so I would avoid speaking, but some of the persons listening to me are familiar with the business about which I'm speaking. It's a food retail business. There were less than 30 people on duty. I think they had about 24 to 26 people on duty because it was a Sunday. They fried 96 eggs. That is more than 3 to a person. You know what's worse? They had no authority or right to fry anything. So this was taken out of stock. And nobody would have known anything about it because it would have been classified as breakages. And then they cooked. I know you'll find this incredible, but it was 12 tubers of yam that they cooked. 12 tubers of yam. 3 crates of eggs. Nigerians. And each and every one of them have at one point or the other had cause to speak about the corrupt government of Nigeria. They have had reason to speak to the wickedness of our rulers. But they did this. I would eat more than 1 egg fried. Each one of them had more than 3 when you consider the fact that they fried 3 crates of eggs. That is not about sating hunger. That is about being wicked. Now remember this. This is not something the management was ever meant to find out. And it took the collective silence of those working there, all of them, for that to happen. And they will speak to the wickedness of the government. There was a day I was driving towards my office in Lekki, and I noticed that a light had come up on my dashboard suggesting that I had a flat tire. I had run flats, but it was necessary that I topped up the hair. So I parked by a vulcanizer at the junction to my office on Admiralty. And he said, oh, you have a couple of leakages. I didn't argue with him. I paid him. And he fixed it. So I drove away. And then I got back home, and in the following morning, the driver called my attention to the fact that when he was cleaning the car and he started it earlier on, he noticed that the light was on, the tire light was on again. And this was Monday now, so I asked him to take the tire to the Dunlop Center close to my house. And he went there. And by the time he got back, he said, there was something wrong with the valve. So they replaced the valve. I never had any leak in my tire. But this vulcanizer, he had, anyway, I went back to him on my way to the office. And I said to him, you have apprentices, young boys, a couple of them probably in their early teenage years. And you're already teaching them to steal as part of them learning a trade. But he too will speak about the wickedness of Tinubu. He will tell you how wicked the government is. He will speak of the oppression of the ruling class. But he's a Nigerian. He is one of us. Just another Nigerian. When I was in prison, I came across multiple persons who had no business being in prison. Absolutely no business being in prison. But because somebody somewhere, some Mr. Big Man, felt himself wronged, or felt a need to punish someone for something that went wrong, they're in prison. It's just another Nigerian. No saints, no sinners. And then I realized that when we fail to understand that the other person is just another Nigerian, just another victim, just another person whom the system is dealing with, we legitimize what happens to them because we don't have a template for who the Nigerian is. It's always about, is either the person is one of ours or is one of theirs. Meanwhile, in our heads, we've qualified the person as either a saint or a sinner on the basis of our subjective interpretation of the person's humanity. So if you learned that the army massacred a Shia crowd, you automatically justify the fact that they were murdered because, it is the Shia, the apostates. And if you are a Christian, particularly in the South, it is the Muslims killing themselves. So you have the saints, you have the sinners, and you forget it's just another Nigerian. Oh yeah, you have your Boku advert. The fraudulent trader is meant to be from a particular ethnic group, right? You see, here is the sad thing. You're merely painting the picture of a Nigerian. The person outside the country coming across you as a Nigerian is already bad enough that you're some effing ass nigger. You're a black man. You don't get it. You think he cares for the niceties of your ethnicity? It doesn't. You've defined yourself in front of him. Oh, when you say, oh, this one is a ritualist, that one is a fraudster, that one is a terrorist, they don't care. You're just defining the Nigerian. That's all you're doing. You define the Nigerians each time you open your mouth to talk about the saints, the sinners. There are no saints or sinners in the eyes of the world. It's just a Nigerian. It's just another Nigerian. That's all you are. Why should it be the business of the West to separate you in the manner that you have separated yourself? Why should it be their business? They don't care. You're just another Nigerian. Oh, you're Christian. They will ask the question after the fact. You've already been stereotyped. They have your profile. The Nigerian. Who is the Nigerian? Is the fraudster. You define yourself as one. Is the one you can't trust when you buy things from him. You define yourself. Or is a ritualist. You defined yourself. Oh, he's a terrorist. You've defined yourself. They can't be trusted. You've defined yourself. The world does not care which part of the many divisions you come from. The moment you bring out your green cards, your victimhood is ascertained. Everything you've had occasion to say about each and every one of the other victims, you are identified by. That is exactly how they identify you. When you sit down and you legitimize the massacre of one ethnicity or religiosity on account of your narrow subjective interpretation of their humanity, you do the same to yourself. The same rule that applies to the ninja is the one that applies to the woman in powder. Both of them look exactly alike. So at the end of the day, when you define something in terms of your subjective understanding of who and what that person is, you're defining yourself as well. The same force of impunity that murdered over 430 Shia in Zaria, that was the same impunity that came visiting at Lekki Toll Gate. That was the same impunity that went to Hodi. That was the exact same impunity that you saw in Zakibiam. You tolerate it in one space, he says hello in the next space, because they are all Nigerians. There are no saints, there are no sinners, just Nigerians. That is all there are, just Nigerians. And you know what happens? Because we fail to understand that it's just Nigerians, we've taken away the place of individual accountability. When you're busy pointing fingers at the government, what are you pointing at yourself? Is it just Tinubu? What about you? What about you in your private space? What do you do? What about you? Look at the society. We've become acculturated to madness. That didn't happen just because our rulers are evil. It happened because we permitted it, we explained it, we normalized it. That's why it's happening to us. You think we're exempt because we are this, because you are Yoruba, you are Fulani, you are Igbo, you are this, you are that. It doesn't exempt you. Don't worry, it will come to you eventually. What you legitimize in relation to one becomes normalized in relation to all. Eventually, it will come your way. Eventually. Look, Nigeria is the way it is by design because it has never been owned by Nigerians. If it's ever going to change, it will be because Nigerians owned it. And Nigerians cannot own it if there are no Nigerians. You've divided yourselves and we have no common cause. I am not unmindful of the persons who have been asking about the ICE platform. Don't worry, you will have more access to that platform this week. I'm driving towards that. Don't worry yourselves. There are systemic issues. These things are by design. But we would have to find common cause, bring ourselves together, understanding the fact that we cannot deal with these as saints and sinners. It's just Nigerians. We're all just Nigerians. For now, that's all we are. That is not supposed to mean that we cannot be anything other than Nigerians. People do not stay together by force. They stay together because they have reasons to want to be together. We have to find these reasons because what has been designed for us is that we break it up. As long as the West have access to our natural resources, they are fine. We can exist in a perpetual state of war, which is where we've been essentially since 2003, 2004, since Obasanjo, the beginning of Obasanjo's second term. We've been in a slow-burn civil war. It's just not been called exactly that. So we have to come to the point of understanding that it is entirely up to the victims to find the grace to understand and recognize. There are no saints, there are no sinners, they're just Nigerians. Look all around us. Look all around us. Because of the divisions that we have allowed, because of the divisions that we have embraced, our society has broken down because we don't have shared norms any longer. Trump spoke about how the Nigerian government has allowed it. Those are the systemic reasons for our madness. How do you have a multi-ethnic, multicultural, religion-sensitive country and a party, the APC, who deliberately promote divisions in that same country? Muslim ticket was bad enough. You weaponized ethnic bigotry in Lagos State and everywhere else. Bigotry has always been part and parcel of Nigerian politics. But it had never happened that person in high government offices, public officials, would embrace bigotry so blatantly in the public space. But if we, who are not beneficiaries of the madness, who are in truth the victim of the madness, refuses to find the grace, to find the common purpose, to come together to ensure that our house does not come crashing around our heads, what we would have is what we already have: social conflicts, resentment, loss of trust in public institutions, reduced social cohesion, moral ambiguity. Look all around us. Internal conflicts everywhere you turn. The fact remains that there are no saints and there are no sinners, only Nigerians. We are all commonly guilty and responsible for where we are. There is a part where there is a systemic guilt and it should be addressed. But even that systemic guilt can only ever be redeemed or dealt with when we, as a people, come to the knowledge of the fact that these issues have to be dealt with, recognizing that there are no saints, no sinners, just Nigerians, and stop prioritizing this subjective basis for assessing power. Stop it. Stop it. Stop this idiotic fixation on ethno-religious filters for the truth. Is there a genocide in Nigeria? Oh, yes, there is. Trump was never required to tell us that. That Trump has to come into Nigeria to be telling us what we already know, and then we're still debating that. It's because we've all subjectivized the truth. That Muslims are also being killed is the truth, but it does not invalidate the earlier truth or the other truth. There is a genocide going on against the Christians in northern Nigeria. That is a fact. That 116 villages and settlements in the plateau have been overtaken by terrorists of Fulani stock, who have been allowed to settle and take over these villages as though they are Nigerians, even when they are not. These are facts. So the question of there being a genocide should no longer be an argument if we care about our shared humanity. There are no saints, there are no sinners, there are only Nigerians. The share are Nigerians. Those murdered at Lekki were Nigerians. Odi, they are Nigerians. The people being killed across the length and breadth of northern Nigeria and the middle belt are Nigerians. That they are Christians, they are from minority ethnic groups, does not dehumanize them, and it does not render them less human. If we would all tell ourselves this basic truth, we would not argue about the fact that there is a genocide. If we would all tell ourselves the truth, we would not argue that the Nigerian government has allowed and has continued to allow this. We will not argue about the complicity of the average person in government in what is happening. The lies, the suppression of the truth points to the complicity. These are truths we must tell ourselves. It is up to us to solve our problems. Now, there are two things I need to say as I come to a close. Randy Akapita is still doing his work. Support what he's doing. But beyond that, The guy's platform and the link to it published before the end of this week on all my social media platforms. It's not something I'm looking to control. It's something I'm looking to give all of you. In the first place, all our politics, this gentleman has been something of a very interesting species, maybe in our APC, but I don't know. Even if my enemy brings a bad idea, a good idea, I'm happy to embrace the good idea. So even a USA project, we thank God. But as far as I'm concerned, they are Nigerians.